Welcome to the Mills Knows Bills podcast. My name is Mills Bender. I'm the founder and CEO of Mills Knows Bills, where we help you, variable income earners, master your money in 90 days. The point of this podcast is to help you make the most of your fluctuating income so you can stop living paycheck to paycheck, pay off your debt twice as fast, and get on track toward reaching both your personal and professional financial goals. Now, as I continue to grow my team here at MKB, you may have some guest hosts from time to time. However, our goal does not change. Whether we're bringing in a guest speaker, having an in-depth conversation about our personal finances, or talking about a topic that is of interest to you, our goal is to help you master your money. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Mills Knows Bills podcast, where during this season, we are answering business owners' burning financial questions. I'm your host, as well as founder and CEO, Mills Bender. And with us today, we have a special guest named Hope. Hope and I have been following each other on Instagram for a long time. We actually use the same content creator for our businesses, and we just kind of happened to follow each other. And this is the first time we're meeting, and it's an honor. I'm really excited. Love her posts and her content. If you don't already follow her, do so, because she's a lot of fun. So Hope, please introduce yourself. Tell everybody a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, thank you so much. Hope Soto. Shout out to Day of Socials. That's our content creator. She's amazing. We love Chloe.
Day of Socials, yes.
So I run a personal injury law firm out of Miami. I'm located in Coral Gables, but I pretty much represent clients throughout Florida. So the bulk of my work is car accidents, slip and falls, and other kinds of premises liability.
Awesome. And so today you have a very specific burning financial question based off the fact that you do own your own law firm. So what is that question, and how can I answer that for you today?
Sure. Yeah. So I got into business about 1.5 years ago, and in law school, they don't teach you anything about opening your own firm. They just expect you to go work for a corporate structure and just kind of sell yourself in that way. But we don't know how we're supposed to structure our business, specifically when you're running a personal injury law firm where we work on a contingency fee basis. So I put forward all of the costs of my cases, and I get them back only when we win. So it's not like regular business litigation that we're taking big retainers up front, and that's an easy way to survive. I really am earning, bigger cases at a time, but it varies.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's tough to get into when you're just starting your own business. I think it's a really unique situation. The first thing I would say for you is establish a budget if you haven't already done so. And I'm not talking about the formal, income, taxes, expenses. I'm talking about in your business, what are the average costs that you have to put up front right away? If I were you, I would have 2 separate savings accounts minimum for your business. One would be for 3 cases worth of those contingencies. And then the other account, I would make 3 months of your expenses. And those expenses would be all other expenses outside of those upfront costs. Things like your payroll, your overhead, anything that you still have to pay regardless if you have a case or not, right? This cushion over here, the contingency cushion, is going to be what you can use to pay for those future cases. And I know before we hit record, we were kind of chit-chatting a little bit, and you were saying how sometimes you have those larger cases that you get extra money from, but you do need to end up using some of that money for maybe future cases. So in the event that you make more money than expected in terms of your budget, going back to the budget now, anything in excess of what you need to make should go back to that emergency fund or that contingency fund until they are fully funded. Then once you have the excess in the future, that can go straight to your profit. That can go straight to your pocket, right? So for example, if your budget is $10,000 a month. That's what you need to make each and every month. But in one month you make $15,000. That extra $5,000 can go towards filling those 2 buckets until they are done. Because if in the second month you make $5,000, you're going to need to pull the other 5 from those buckets to help bring you whole. And that structure, that variability is going to happen for a little while until you fully fund those accounts. Once you fund those accounts, think of that as your buffer in the variability of your revenue. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Totally.
Are there any other follow-up questions that I could maybe answer for you?
I mean, that's actually super beneficial. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to implement that as soon as possible.
Okay.
Yeah. So creating that cushion specifically is really important. And then I guess, is there something that I should be keeping in my operating account aside from those savings accounts? Is that something like, what does that emergency fund look like?
Yes, I love that question. Okay, so have you heard of the Profit First method by Mike Michalowicz?
No.
Okay, so the profit for, well, here's the thing. A lot of business owners get into business because they're really good at what they do, not because they're great at the money side. It's
totally,
doctors, lawyers, construction workers, pest control. It doesn't matter. Like, you're getting into business because you can do what you do for yourself. The financial side is a whole other beast. I just happen to be one and the same, but that's besides the point. So the question was, what should you leave in your operating account? It's a great question. Mike Michalowicz is an author who wrote the book Profit First. I think the idea of Profit First is phenomenal. I do, however, think that some adaptations need to be made for my clients. And so I do implement Profit First with them, but I do it with some adjustments. This being the main adjustment. You should always keep at least 10% of your average monthly revenue in your operating account as a buffer. The reason being, if you ever want to expand your business and leverage any financing to do so, you are able to qualify a lot easier if you don't completely deplete your operating expense account each and every month. 10% is about the number that a lot of business financing brokers have explained to me that they like to see in that account, because it shows that there's enough stability in your business to be able to repay that loan and that you're not always running out of money each and every month. The Profit First method basically talks about depleting that operating account every month and giving every dollar a name, which is great. However, start with the 10%, whatever the 90% is, allocate that to its capacity. From my perspective, 10% is great, but there's also room for human error that needs to be taken into consideration. So if you're somebody who likes to just have an extra little buffer in there, I say 15%. So 10% for financing opportunities, the additional 5% for room for human error. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, that's super helpful. These are all things that up until this point, we're just kind of guesstimating,
I mean, and that's what we do as business owners until we see how other people have done it. Going in line with having the different accounts, what I would encourage you to do is open up accounts where you're going to get a higher yield than 0%. So if you're somebody who uses QuickBooks for your bookkeeping, you can open up what's called a QuickBooks checking account, and you can get 5% yield on that money. The really cool part is that you can separate the money in that checking account into, I think, 10 different envelopes. So you could have that contingency envelope. You can have the emergency fund envelope. If you want to hire somebody in the future and save for their payroll in advance, you can have that envelope too. And the money in those envelopes gets you that 5% yield. So if you're going to go with the practice of separating your money, what I would encourage you to do is do research before you open those accounts as to where you can open them with long-lasting benefits.
Absolutely. Wow, that's enlightening. That's super helpful.
Good. Any other questions I can answer for you today?
No, I think that's everything. I'm going to go back to my QuickBooks and I'm going to get back into my accounts and I'm going to figure out how I need to move everything around so I can comply with the proper financial planning.
Yes, and if you have questions while you're opening them, my DMs are always open for you. And, before we close out, you said you work with people all across Florida.
for personal injury, right? And one of the other things that you and I were talking about before we hit record was how the injury side is not just physical damage, it's also mental and emotional, right? So can you maybe explain a little bit more about what you do and maybe when somebody should consider reaching out to you?
Yeah, so I am an attorney, but I also consider myself a therapist in a lot of ways, because with these physical damages, there's always going to be emotional damages. I'm talking about PTSD, and more often than not, it's what we call pain and suffering. Pain and suffering damages are actually a lot of times what people don't realize the bulk of a lot of people's recovery. And it's unfortunate because those are what come with a lot of catastrophic injuries, right? So amputations, back injuries that alter somebody's life and things like that. So I focus a lot of my practice on really maximizing the recovery, not just for the physical injuries, because we can always put a number to the physical injuries. We can find out what those medical bills are going to cost or what they have costed or what they're projected to cost. But your pain and suffering is not really quantified, right? So that's really the work that we do and that I focus on is just, validating those feelings and hearing you and really going back on that, defense counsel, that insurance company, and making sure that we're not just taking pennies on the dime on those emotional damages, because for me, that's the biggest part.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the intangible, but also has the most long-lasting impacts most of the time, I would think. So if somebody thinks that they have a claim, or maybe they want to just learn more about a potential claim, how can they reach out to you? What's the best method?
Sure. Follow me on my Instagram. It's hopesoto.esq. Give me a call. My phone number is on my website and on my Instagram. My consultations are free, so I'm here to help.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast and for asking your burning financial question. I've loved getting to chat with you, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, too. We'll do it again. We'll just get there.
If you stuck around long enough to get to this part of the podcast, I just want to say thank you. We really appreciate the fact that you take the time to listen to the content in its entirety, because we do pour our hearts and soul into every single piece of content we let out. So thank you for being here. I want to let you know that if you're in a space where you're trying to level up your finances, you can always snag some free resources on our YouTube channel, Instagram. You're always welcome to email us at info@millsknowsbills.com. And if you're interested in taking part of any of our coaching programs or courses, be sure to mention our podcast to get a special discount, okay? We want to make sure that you are making the most of your financial investment. Again, I am your host, Mills Bender, founder and CEO of Mills Knows Bills. Thank you so much for listening. And just because I gotta, here's a quick little disclaimer. I want to remind you that this podcast is strictly discussion, okay? It's general, it's educational in nature. We don't provide any specific tax, investment, legal, or financial advice on this podcast with respect to any particular individual, okay? So if you're in a situation where you need specific help, please consult your own advisor regarding your unique situation, because it's not a one-size-fits-all.